I'm going to call the meeting to order a few seconds early. This is the Missoula City Council meeting of May 22nd, 2017. If you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And let the record show that all council members are present this evening except for Ms. Bentley and Mr. DeBari. We have minutes of the meeting of May 15th. They'll stand approved unless there's objection. Seeing none of that, we'll move on to our schedule of committee meetings for 2 weeks.
Thanks. Just as the meeting was starting, my software crashed, so we're not webcasting right now. But I'm pretty sure it'll come back online here in a minute. We're scheduling committee meetings for the next 2 weeks because next week, Monday, is Memorial Day. The first meeting will be Administration and Finance, and it's going to be held on the 24th of May from 1:15 to 1:55 in the afternoon. And then the following week, on the 31st of May, Parks and Conservation will start us out at 1 o'clock to 1:40. Public Works will go from 1:45 to 2 o'clock. Land Use and Planning will go from 2:05 to 2:50. And Budget Committee will go from 2:55 to 4:25.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Any changes to the committee schedule? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. This is your opportunity to comment on items not elsewhere on the agenda this evening. Seeing no general public comment, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Items on that agenda were approved unanimously in council standing committees, and we save a little time on Mondays by considering these items as a package. Ms. Rabine will read the list of consent agenda items aloud so those at home and those in the audience will know what we're considering, and we'll invite comment before we vote. Ms. Rabine.
I'm going to beg your indulgence for a minute here so I can get this just popped back up, and I'd like to get it started. All right, there we go. Tonight's consent agenda looks like 4 items. The first is to approve claims, which are the city's accounts payable in the amount of $593,284.19 for checks that are dated May 23rd, 2017. Number 2 is to approve claims related to the water acquisition in the amount of $9,528.15 for the checks that are also dated tomorrow, May 23rd. Number 3 is to confirm the mayor's reappointment of Dan Cederberg as an at-large member and Kurt Bodlovic as a Zone 2 member of the Business Improvement District for terms that begin June 1st, 2017 and expire on May 31st of 2021. And finally, number 4 is to adopt a resolution of intention to annex and incorporate within the boundaries of the city of Missoula a certain parcel of land described as the Wildflower Hills Lot 3, which includes a private access easement for a portion of Spanish Peak Drive, and zone the property RT10 in the city. All of that property is located in Section 4 of Township 12 North, Range 19 West, Principal Meridian, Montana, and set a public hearing on the whole matter for June 12th of 2017.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Questions or comments from council members? Seeing none, anyone in the audience care to comment? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
On the consent agenda, Armstrong votes yes. Bentley is absent. Cares votes yes. DeBari is absent. This is what happens when I don't have my software at the beginning of the meeting. Apologies. Heddall votes yes. Is Hess here? Yes. Hess votes yes. Jones votes yes. Marler votes yes. Swaney votes yes. Von Lossberg votes yes. West votes yes. And Wilkins votes yes. Would anybody like to change your vote? That is Let's see. 10 ayes and 2 absent.
And the consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to comments from city staff, agencies, boards, commissions, authorities, and the community forum. We do have a forum report this evening with regard to the Grant Creek Neighborhood Council, all the way from Grant Creek. Mr. Lindler.
Thank you. I'm Bert Lindler from the Grant Creek Neighborhood Council. We held our general meeting Wednesday last week. Council members Swaney and Hess were attending. We had about 60 folks in the room, and we had 2 key topics. One, the week prior, on the Wednesday evening, trash is picked up in Grant Creek on Thursday mornings. Grant Creek is in the bear buffer zone. So on Wednesday evening, animal control had an officer go through the neighborhoods and just check to make sure that no trash had gotten out by mistake on Wednesday evening. Unfortunately, they didn't get very far because they had to write so many warnings. So they wrote 54 warnings and were done for the evening. The evening of our meeting, an animal control officer was patrolling the neighborhoods while the good residents were at the Grant Creek Inn at a meeting. And that evening, only 2 of the 54 residents who had received warnings a week before had their trash out early, but 11 other residents had somehow mistakenly put their trash out. So we had a long discussion. Fortunately, we have a very dedicated staff of folks who look after bears and lions and trash and other animals, etc. in Missoula. We had Bob Wiesner and Brittany and Jamie Jonkel from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and Jeff Dara at the meeting to discuss with residents their to receive warm and effusive praise from residents for their careful enforcement of the bear buffer zone regulations. I dare not describe the comments as warm and effusive, but they were generally very civil. There was a motion passed that the leadership of the neighborhood council and DORA and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and Republic Services should meet to see if there's some way that residents not be expected to put trash out before 7:30 a.m. to get the trash picked up. Some folks, if they don't put their trash out at 6 or 6:30 a.m., they will not receive trash pickup. So that seems to me to be a fairly reasonable cause for putting the trash out early. And it would be nice if we could find a way that people weren't expected to put it out quite so early. So the other key concern that is on the mind of Grant Creek residents as summer approaches is wildfire. We've had 2 fires up the drainage in recent years, one just last summer. They've both been stopped early. Fire officials in this neighborhood know that it would not be good to have a major fire in Grant Creek, and they go all out, and we've been very, very lucky. So we won't always be that lucky, perhaps, and Jordan Coppin from the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation brought in a number of the fire officials, both from City Fire, Missoula Rural, Forest Service District Ranger, the Forest Service Fire Management Officer, some other DNRC folks, and emergency services, because one of the concerns that folks had last summer was, why did I get evacuated? Why couldn't my friends come in and help me move out? Why wasn't I told when the evacuation was over? Why did my neighbors not get evacuated, but I had to get evacuated, etc.? The general answer to that is we acted very quickly and did the best we could. And in general, I think the residents of Grant Creek have been extremely well served. The evacuations, however, will always remain a difficult problem, and because Grant Creek is one way in, one way out, our residents need to understand that they will be expected to evacuate when there's any serious emergency in that drainage. They were told of the benefits of reverse 911, and particularly of informing people if there's disabilities, people hard of hearing, people, you know, it makes it a lot easier for the deputies to do a thorough job when they know who they're trying to evacuate and what special needs there may be. There was a motion passed at the end of that discussion, a rather long discussion, I might add, that the leadership team of the Neighborhood Council work with Jordan Coppin from the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation to try to again do a drainage-wide assessment of fire hazard. It was done in 2007. There was a lot of work done after that. And Jordan is in the process of assessing fire hazard at individual residences and on large ownerships within the drainage. And then people will be approached and offered possible help, if there is help, to try and reduce fire hazards so that we have a better chance of good outcomes if another fire passes through Grant Creek. We did have a brief update on the proposed improvements at the I-90 Grant Creek interchange. Thank you, City Council members, for your role in setting aside some money so that the Department of Transportation felt enabled to plan this project. So the project is in planning. The surveying is done. The design is going to be done. It looks like it'll cost maybe $500,000. You're in for $200,000. And as early as next summer, we may see an additional southbound lane, an additional right turn lane, and a bike lane sandwiched between those two. There would be some work on the median to narrow that to make room, and the sidewalk on the west side would be moved further west to create room for the additional lanes. But in general, we're told that not only would it allow traffic to pass more quickly through the light each cycle, but the savings in time will be distributed throughout the interchange and make the next cycle come more quickly. So the weights should improve dramatically when that change is made as early as next summer. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. With that, we will move on to the public hearing portion of our agenda. State law and our own council rules set guidelines for inviting comment in a formal way on a variety of issues. And following a staff report on each of these items, council and I will invite comment. Council typically votes on the same evening as the public hearing unless one council member elects to return that item to committee for further consideration. Our first public hearing this evening is on a conditional use request at 1151 Van Buren for an accessory dwelling unit. And Ms. Baker has our staff report this evening.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Jenny Baker. I'm with Development Services, and this evening we are looking at a conditional use request from James Kennedy on behalf of the property owner Joshua Lisbon, who would like to construct a new garage at the rear of his property on Van Buren Street and incorporate a 572 square foot ADU as the second story of the project. Both Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Lisbon are here this evening. The property is located where you see the blue star. It's on Van Buren, part of the lower Rattlesnake neighborhood and Missoula's Ward 1. Our Missoula growth policy recommends a land use designation of residential medium density with 3 to 11 dwelling units per acre in this area. The subject property and the surrounding area is zoned R5.4, which is residential, a minimum lot size of 5,400 square feet in this district, and there is a mix of 1- and 2-story residences surrounding this site. Now we're looking at the site plan. At the front, outlined in blue, is the existing house, which is 22 feet tall. There at the back, outlined in red, is where the proposed ADU and garage would be. It is 21 feet, 5 inches tall. So it is less, the height is less than the existing house, which is one of the regulations it has to meet. The regulations also state that there have to be 3 parking spaces for residents with an ADU, and one of the parking spaces will be provided in the garage, and the other 2 you can see at the bottom of the slide are paved parking pads beside the garage. All 3 of these are accessed from the alley. This is the floor plan, and the total area comes out to 572, I believe, rather than 584, so I apologize for that mistake. It is within the range, in any event, of 350 to 600 square feet. This is a rendering that shows you, if you're looking from Van Buren Street, what you will see with the house, and then behind it there is the garage. It shows the house height to be 22 feet, and then just a little bit shorter, the garage at the back. The next ones are building elevations, which you may or may not get to see on the main screen, but you can see on the smaller ones. In any case, you would see that there is matching siding and trim. The entrance to the ADU faces the alley, and then there are some windows on the other sides except for the north side, which faces the nearest side property line and has the stairwell inside. There aren't any windows in the design for that. I'll pretend like you can see this. There is a picture of the house which shows that there is a 7-foot boulevard sidewalk in front of it, and then about a foot of space, and then a picket fence. And the picket fence represents the property line, since the sidewalk pretty much extends from there to the street. There really isn't room for street tree planting, as we discussed at Land Use and Planning on Wednesday. We'll talk about the review criteria. The first thing is the compliance with zoning. This project will meet all applicable zoning regulations. The second is that it should be compatible with the neighborhood character. This new building was designed to be compatible with the existing residents and generally fits in scale and design with the surrounding structures. It's in keeping with the residential character of the neighborhood. The third thing is compatible operating characteristics. This will be a residence the same as all of the uses surrounding it. And finally, whether it impacts traffic safety for all modes of transportation. Any nominal additional traffic generated by this project won't pose inconvenience or detriment to the existing traffic patterns or traffic safety in the area. So finally, we recommend approval of this accessory dwelling unit conditional use request at 1151 Van Buren, based on the findings of fact in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval. Thanks. I'll be glad to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. With that, I will open the public hearing. Anyone in the audience care to comment on this proposed conditional use request? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Are there questions from council members? Seeing none, Ms. Jones?
I make the motion that we approve the conditional use request for a detached accessory dwelling unit at 1151 Van Buren Street in the R5.4 zoning district in accordance with the city zoning ordinance, Title 20, Sections 20.05.020, Section 20.45 20.45.060, and Section 20.85.07, based on the findings of fact in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval, and I'd like to speak to it briefly.
Ms. Jones.
I'm in favor of this. I appreciate the work done by our city planner, Ms. Gress, on this. It's within the factors to be considered, and it's a pretty straightforward application, I found, and also the fact that there are no windows on, I think it's the north side, so that they are not looking down into the neighbor's yard. I've actually had people in the University District be very concerned about that aspect about ADUs, so I appreciate the sensitivity of the neighbors and making that work, and the fact that we haven't heard from any neighbors objecting to this is valuable, I think, so I'm in favor of it.
Further discussion on the motion? Ms. West?
I just wanted to add that after looking, during committee meetings, I said that I had some concern about one of the walls not having any sort of windows or, it's all one plane. And after looking at the Google Earth or images and seeing how close it is to the neighboring property and neighboring structures, I'm not concerned about it.
Further discussion? Mr. Wilkins?
So I'm not in favor of this. I've been saying all along that I don't believe putting another dwelling place in a single-family area under a conditional use is right. There's no other conditional uses that adds another dwelling place to a residence, so I just have a problem with this. Though I have to say one thing, whether I don't like it or not having windows on the neighbor's side, I think was a good thing, because I hear a lot of complaints about that too.
Ms. Cares?
I just wanted to thank staff Jenny Baker for looking into the paving question I had during committee regarding why the folks were having to pave 20 feet on either side, and I really appreciated the answer about that. It makes sense to me, and I support this project. Thank you.
Mr. Von Lossberg?
Thanks. I'll be supporting this. I just wanted to note from the application that this project rehabilitates a garage unit and actually will help remove parking from the street, and more importantly, it talks to helping with the diversity of housing in the neighborhood. We live in a university town. I am sure that it's a real possibility a student or a visiting faculty member may live in this sort of housing, and that's a good thing for the community. So I'm happy to support.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we've had a public hearing. We'll have a roll call vote.
Okay, on the approval of the conditional use, Cares? Yes. Cares votes yes. Heddle? Yes. Heddle votes yes. Hess? Yes. Hess votes yes. Jones? Yes. Jones votes yes. Marlar? Yes. Marlar votes yes. Sweeney? Sweeney votes yes. Von Lossberg? Von Lossberg votes yes. West? Yes. West votes yes. Wilkins? Wilkins votes no. And Armstrong? Yes. Armstrong votes yes. Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 9 ayes, 1 nay, and 2 absent.
And the conditional use is approved. Our second public hearing this evening is on a rezoning request at South Crossing. And Mr. Larson has our staff report this evening.
Let's see if this boat boots back up. Looks like we lost the projector. So, did you guys like it on the small screens? Council? Yeah? Okay. Oops. Wrong one. From the beginning. Okay. So we've got it there, but not on the big one, or on the small screens. All right. Technical difficulties. All right, good evening. Drew Larson with Development Services. And tonight we are discussing a request from UT Missoula, represented tonight by Mr. Kirk Atkins of WGM Group, to rezone a parcel that is currently split zoned, with the southern portion of the property being zoned B2-2 community business, and the remaining portion of the lot zoned C1-4 neighborhood commercial. This rezone would place the entire parcel within the C14 Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District. This rezoning will result in a standard zoning district under Title 20, which cannot be conditioned. Come on, man. Zoom slideshow. Yes? No? Okay. Anywho. Moving on with the technical difficulties. So the subject property is located near the intersection of South Reserve Street and 39th Street and is accessed from South Reserve Street, which is a minor arterial in this location. In addition, the site will be also accessed from the enterprise commercial use to the north of the property through parking lots and access easements and those types of things. So the property is currently vacant and was most recently used as a parking lot for the Cinema 6 that has been demolished and redeveloped with commercial uses. So the applicable regional plan is the Missoula City Growth Policy 2035, which recommends a land use designation of regional commercial and services. This regional commercial and services land use designation is intended to encompass uses with large land requirements, which involve outdoor storage of merchandise, automobile uses, residential or regional retail uses, support services for businesses, industry, and highway travel. Area designated with this land use designation are located in close proximity to major transportation routes, including minor arterials. The regional and commercial services is described as an area for commercial uses serving the needs of a broader region to follow the zoning broader region with the following zoning districts listed as the most relatable. That'd be the C zoning district, C2, C1, a mixed residential industrial district, M1R-2. So as noted earlier, the parcel is split zone with the southern portion being encumbered by the B2-2 zoning, and on this slide you can see that it's in the blue and the subject property is in the simple crosshatch. So the B2 Community Business Zoning District supports a variety of low to moderate intensity commercial uses, and the maximum building height is 50 feet. The B2 zoning district is not listed as a current relatable zoning district for areas with the regional commercial and services land use designation. The northern portion and the properties located north of the subject property, C14 zoning district, promotes moderate to high intensity commercial uses such as restaurants, office, retail sales, enterprise commercial uses. So the reason the rezoning came about is in the fall of 2016, the applicants proposed a subdivision exemption to relocate common boundaries. There's 5 subject properties that are, 4 of them are zone C1-4, and this one is the split zoning. So the new parcel would have included a portion of the South Crossing enterprise commercial use, and in the B2 zoning district, an enterprise commercial use is not permitted. And so with Title 20, there's a section that states that the more restrictive zoning district in a split zone parcel applies to the entire parcel, and therefore the boundary line relocation could not be approved because the B2 zoning would prevail. And so the applicants have requested the rezone to complete the boundary line relocation. So the proposed zoning is again to remove all the split zoning and place the entire parcel within that C1-4 zoning district. The rezoning creates consistent permitted uses. It will increase the building height from 50 feet to 125 feet and complies with the applicable growth policy. And again, this is a standard zoning, rezoning, which means it cannot be conditioned. So getting in through the review criteria, these criteria address whether the proposed zoning amendment is in accordance with the growth policy, facilitates the provision of motorized and active transportation facilities and other public infrastructure like water and sewer, promotes compatible urban growth, whether the rezoning promotes public health and safety, and considers the character of the district. So the proposed rezone complies with the goals and objectives as well as the land use designation of the growth policy. The rezoning promotes compatible urban growth by providing an idea or I'm trying to think of the word. Holy cow. Brain moment. Like predictable uses. There we go. Thank you. I apologize. A little slow there tonight. But yeah, provides predictable uses in the area so that the neighborhood kind of knows what they're getting into and what we're looking for in that area from the growth policy. So the rezoning will promote public health, public safety, and general welfare with access to sewer, public water, emergency services, streets, bicycle lanes, and other urban services. And the rezoning is suitable for the subject property and gives reasonable consideration to the character of the district by providing intensity and the intensity of the commercial uses appropriate for lands with this land use designation. So the planning board that was held on May 2nd, there was a little bit of concern regarding or discussion regarding the 38th Street connection to the east of the property, which we also discussed in land use and planning, as well as the boundary line relocation and what that would do. But it was unanimously approved that night, and they forwarded to you with the recommendation to adopt the ordinance to rezone the subject property. So I am here if you have any questions, and Clerk Adkins is as well.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. With that, I will open the public hearing on the proposed rezoning. Anyone care to comment this evening? With that, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions from council members? Seeing none, pardon me, Ms. Jones.
Make the motion that we adopt an ordinance to rezone a tract of land in the southwest quarter of the Southwest Quarter, Section 32, described in Book 928 of Micro Records at page 1112, located near the intersection of Reserve Street and 39th Street, from B2-2 and C1-4 to C1-4, neighborhood commercial.
That motion is in order. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we've had a public hearing. We'll have a roll call vote.
On the motion to adopt the ordinance and rezone, Heddle. Heddle votes yes. Hess votes yes. Jones votes yes. Marlar votes yes. Swaney votes yes. Van Lossberg votes yes. West votes yes. Wilkins votes yes. Armstrong votes yes. And Cares votes yes. Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 10 ayes and 2 nays. Or excuse me, 2 absent.
And the rezoning is approved. Our third and final public hearing this evening is on a rezoning request to amend Canyon East Special Zoning District. And making a return appearance, Mr. Larson.
All right, again, Drew Larson, Development Services. And tonight I'm presenting a second request for rezoning in the city. This one is from Westmont Investments, represented tonight by Paul Forsting of Territorial Landworks, to amend the Canyon East Special Zoning District to include a 9-unit multi-dwelling building and to clarify front yard setbacks in the sub-district number 4. The Canyon East Special Zoning District is located west of Reserve Street and north of Expressway, and is designated on this map in the blue teal up in the upper left-hand corner. Here's just a zoomed-in map of the subdivision as well as the Canyon East Special Zoning District. You can see that both sides are surrounded and fully built out, and most of, it's hard to tell underneath the blue layer, is that most of the subdivision is already constructed, and we're on the final phase, which is the southern portion. And the special district number 4 is on the bottom right-hand side, or bottom corner of the special district. So the Missoula City Growth Policy is the applicable regional plan, which designates the subject property as residential medium, which calls for a density of 3 to 11 dwelling units per acre. The Canyon East Subdivision and Zoning District was approved at an overall density of 9.35 dwelling units per acre. The proposed rezone adds an additional 6 units, which would bump it up to, I believe it was 9.95 dwelling units, which is still under what the growth policy calls for. The growth policy identifies many goals and objectives related to the housing in the city of Missoula. The housing chapter identifies that within the next 20 years that the population projections will grow by 18,500 residents, which presents a need for approximately 9,000 additional new dwelling units. The housing chapter further identifies goals of providing a variety of housing types that will meet the needs of a growing and diverse population in regard to age, income, physical abilities, and household size. So the subject property is adjacent to properties zoned Windsor Park Special Zoning District, and to the east is the Canyon Creek Village, which actually the Canyon East was modeled after and are very similar in nature. And that is to the west, and both of these zoning districts actually contain multi-dwelling building components within their zoning districts. So in addition, there is C2-4 community commercial zoning to the west and south of the subject property, and that's depicted in red up there. And across Wheeler Drive is a county zoning district, C-I1, which is a light industrial zoning district. So here is it's a rotated map to fit it all on there. To the right is the north of the Canyon East Special Zoning District. It is broken into 4 sub-districts, 1 through 4. And the subject one that we're talking about tonight is sub-district number 4 and is depicted in red. But just getting into a little bit about what else is built within the Canyon East, number 1 and number 2 special districts are single family. They allow for ADUs, detached garages, single family dwellings. However, ADUs are not permitted in sub-district number 2. Other than that, they're identical. The sub-district number 3 is in this purplish color and permits up to 3 unit townhouses built together or in one building. And then sub-district 3, that's the 3 unit townhouses, and 4 is currently permitted or tasked as live-work units, so a commercial component on the ground floor or the second floor with 1 residence above, and so there'd be 3 dwelling units there. It also permits the townhouse development in sub-district number 3. Okay, where was I? So just a few of the general requirements in the Canyon East Special Zoning District: bicycle parking facilities, landscaping requirements, off-street parking requirements. We talked about what was permitted in each of those special zoning districts, or in each of those sub-districts: single-family dwellings in 1 and 2, as well as townhomes and condos in sub-district 3, and the live-work or townhouses in sub-district 4. So just again, this is depicting the sub-district number 4, where they're proposing the multi-dwelling, 9-unit multi-dwelling building. So the requested changes are an additional 6 dwelling units, which again, the subdivision was approved at 9.35, and the increase of 6 additional dwelling units bumps up the density to a 9.95. I'm pretty sure I have that note somewhere. So with that, we amended the Canyon East Special Zoning District standards to include parking for a multi-dwelling building, which are identical to Title 20, bicycle parking standards, which are identical to Title 20. We did receive 1 agency comment regarding the landscaping, and since this has been approved, Parks and Rec now requires a 2-inch caliper tree be planted as street trees from the approved street tree list. So that's the general stuff. And then in sub-district number 4, is a maximum of 9 units within a multi-dwelling building. The front yard setbacks, this property is actually considered a through lot because it has 3 fronts: Wheeler, Storehouse Way, and Devereaux. And so in Title 20, if we were to look at a through lot, there's some issues about where parking can be located and what accessory structures. And so what we did is clarified the setbacks in this, and so there are still 3 fronts, but we reduced the setback off of Wheeler Drive to 3 feet, which would actually match the sub-district number 3 to the left, and then left Storehouse Way and Devereaux as a 7-foot front yard setback, which with allowed encroachments as porches or balconies. So in addition, Staff and the applicant's representative worked together, and we actually added most of the design standards from Title 20 for the multi-dwelling building, including, access, landscaping, building design, glazing, storage, porches, balconies, and other design features. And then the multi-dwelling parking standards. So getting through the review criteria, the rezoning complies with the growth policy goals and objectives, as well as the land use designation by staying under the 11 dwelling unit threshold. The rezoning facilitates the adequate provision of public services, including transportation, water, sewerage, schools, parks, and emergency services. The rezoning promotes compatible urban growth by providing a transition between the townhouse developments to the north and the commercial uses and industrial uses to the south. The requested zoning amendment will provide for compatible development in the district by creating a reasonable transition between existing residential development to the north and commercial uses to the south. So again, Planning Board on May 2nd, the discussion covered the on-street parking and narrow streets, and that we discussed in LUP, and that this subdivision was designed as an urban subdivision with access to alleys and parking being off the alleys and narrower streets as traffic calming. And then they were also concerned with vehicle access off of, it's only allowed from Devereaux Place, which was north of the sub-district number 4, because there is a 1-foot no access strip on Wheeler, and the intersection between Devereaux Place and Wheeler on Storehouse is too narrow to permit a second access. And again, this was unanimously approved and forwarded to City Council to approve the adoption of the ordinance to amend the Canyon East Special Zoning District. Thank you, and Mr. Forsting and I are here if you have questions.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. With that, I will open the public hearing. Anyone care to comment on this proposed rezoning? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions from council members? Mr. Wilkins?
So can you tell me if there parking on these streets on both sides, and how wide is the lane widths?
I don't know the lane widths, but when I was out there, they were parked on both sides. It did narrow it down and pretty much permitted only one vehicle to drive down the street at a time.
Only one vehicle, but
You could probably get 2, but I was in a big city vehicle that was a little larger.
right, they were a lane going each way, I take it. They weren't one.
Well, there would be a lane going each way, but there's parking on both sides of the street, which it did narrow it down to a point where you could navigate it going both ways.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Heddle?
I'm going to just go off of what Mr. Wilkins was referring to. Obviously, there's not a plan currently for what's going to go there. This is just a rezoning at this point. Do you think that staff is kind of looking forward in regards to the parking issue out there, and that there might be some sort of requirements, or is it just?
I'm unaware of any actual parking issues.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, Ms. Jones?
I'll make the motion to adopt an ordinance to amend the standards of the Canyon East Special Zoning District as shown in Exhibit 2 in order to accommodate multi-dwelling uses and standards in Subdistrict Number 4, located at the intersections of Wheeler Drive, Storehouse Way, and Devereaux Place, and legally described in Exhibit 1 based on the findings of fact and subject to the condition of approval.
That motion is in order. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. Wilkins?
Well, I'm not going to support the motion for the simple fact that, you're going back at Carl Tyler and down, there's a subdivision that was built, that the roads are narrow and there's parking on both sides, and 2 3/4-ton trucks can't pass each other. And I just don't think that's right, so I think you need, for safety reasons, have at least enough room for big trucks to pass, the fire engine going down, or whatever. I mean, it just doesn't seem right to me.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we've had a public hearing. We'll have a roll call vote.
On the ordinance to rezone, Hess. Hess votes yes. Jones? Yes. Jones votes yes. Marlar? Marlar votes yes. Sweeney? Sweeney votes yes. Von Lossberg? Von Lossberg votes yes. West? West votes yes. Wilkins? Wilkins votes no. Armstrong? Armstrong votes yes. Cares? Cares votes yes. And Heddle? Heddle votes yes. Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 9 ayes, 1 nay, 2 absent.
And the rezoning is approved. We have no additional public hearings this evening. We'll move on to communications from the mayor. We have called a special meeting of the Missoula City Council on Thursday, May 25th at 3 o'clock to consider our settlement agreement with Liberty Utilities, which is reaching its final stages and will be ready for your consideration that day. The reason we're calling the special meeting is so that we can stick as closely as possible to a closing date and move forward to become the operational owners of Mountain Water Company. So I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible on Thursday at 3. We'll move on to general comments from council members. We'll begin this evening with Ms. Swaney, Ms. West, Ms. Jones, Mr. Hess, Ms. Cares.
Vote. Please go vote. Please vote. I'm hoping that you'll vote on Thursday.
Mr. Wilkins.
So I went to Mike Kern's funeral today. You might know Mike. He came with vying for a council seat. He was the gentleman with the bandana. I've known Mike for years and years and worked with him on construction, and he could keep you laughing a lot. He was that kind of a person. So my thoughts go to his family, and I wish him all well.
Ms. Armstrong, Ms. Marler, Ms. Heddall, Mr. Von Lossberg.
First, want to echo Ms. Kerr's comments. Please vote. And secondly, I want to thank the band U2 for being around my whole life and for sticking together. And I want to thank the Lumineers for opening for them. And I want to thank the Lumineers for talking to me in the TSA line at the Burbank Airport and saying how much they like to play in Missoula at the Top Hat. So go Missoula.
With that, we have no committee reports. We have no new items of business. Are there any additional items to be referred this evening? Seeing none of those, any miscellaneous communications, reports, petitions, or announcements?
Mayor Engen, I do have one additional note for the special meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we're also considering a contract with the Montana Department of Transportation with respect to the Orange Street Interchange project. They did not want to wait through the Memorial Day weekend in order to take care of that matter of business and approach me about that.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I thank you for your service. We will be adjourned.